I want to do a small video on what processed food is, right? And the climate that we're in, how things are costing more. Take this information and do what you want with it. Processed food. What is processed food to you? Most people think of corn, for example. So vegetarian corn, that's really processed. Meats that are reformed and stuck back together, so all your oddments, and then they're all squished and what have you. Ready meals, people think about ready meals being processed. Tinned meals, so your curries and your chilies and stuff like that in tins. I'm going to tell you what processed food actually is, and what the term processed actually means, and what that looks like. As a disabled person that gets scored for how disabled I am, they look at the things you can't do yourself, whereby you need an aid or a piece of equipment or somebody else to do it for you. That person would be considered an aid because you can't do it yourself, right? So I'm looking at it from that point of view. Processed food. We've talked about the processed foods that we think of in everyday terms, but I'm going to shrink it right down, okay, and put it as simply as I can to you. Processed food is anything where there is a process involved in between picking it and packing and selling it, right? So somebody else has done something to it between it being picked and being put in a packet to be sold, okay? I can even talk about the packing bit in a second. So let's think. Tinned spaghetti. Spaghetti is a processed food. Somebody or a machine in a factory shoved ingredients together to make the pasta dough, to shape it, to put it out, to then put it in a tin. And then somebody also made the salty, sugary tomato sauce that it sits in and put it with it. Okay, think about how many processors are involved there already, because your raw ingredients are flour and eggs and salt, right, and tomatoes. So they're all you like, and sugar. So they're all your, raw ingredients you would be sold: flour, eggs, salt, sugar, tomatoes. Yeah. But what they've done is they've done all that work. They did the process. They processed it, yeah, to make this product in a tin. Spaghetti in a tin, in a tomato sauce, is processed. Tins of beans. We are in a world where we are poor, and we are going to be pushed into living on what we think is basic foods, okay? Survival foods, okay? That would look like baked beans on toast for us English people. We would live on pasta, plain rice, baked beans on toast. And I can tell you for a fact that us growing up in my family, we had a lot of that, okay? We did. We had a lot of it. However, the way we were brought up, and because of our ethnicity, we didn't solely rely on that. Yes, we had that, but we had other means and methods to living. I'm going to talk on this very briefly. We're Romany Gypsy, right? And we hold our roots despite the fact that we live in homes, okay? That's all I'm going to go into on that. Baked beans in tins. Your bean does not naturally come in a salty, sugary tomato sauce in a tin with a label on it. Someone had to collect all those beans and then take them out of the little pods, put them all together into a tin, make a sauce that's full of additives with a bit of tomato, some salt and some sugar, put that in with the beans. Then they had to make the tin that it sits in. Then they have to figure out how to seal the tin so it stays airtight. Then they make a fancy label to stick on it for advertising purposes, right? There's lots of machinery and people and teams involved in making that one tin of baked beans. That's processed food. Baked beans are processed food, right? If you are not able to do all these processes yourself because you consider yourself strapped on time, or you've got disabilities whereby you can't get the raw ingredients and do it yourself, then you would have baked beans. Okay. Or I'm going to put this one at the end of this. Or you are a person that don't know any better and don't know how to put your own food together from scratch, then you would buy baked beans. We are heavily domesticated over the past 200 years. We've never lived like this before, where everything is convenient. Convenient is another word for I don't have to do the bulk of the work. I pay somebody else to do that. Okay? That's why your food is expensive. That's the short of it. You are paying for somebody to pick your beans, to put them in a tin, to make the tin, to seal the tin, to make a sauce to go with it, to put a label on it that you like, and ship it to the warehouse or the shop or your house, because delivery is part of the process. Okay, it's not processing of the food, but it is processed. It's part of the process, right? Process is doing something to something. Yeah, the steps it takes from one thing to another. People who rely on eating baked beans and toast do that because they think it's the cheapest alternative. What they're not realising is you are paying for all those processes in that one tin. And it's mostly sauce that's full of crap. Same with your bread. It's even here in England, our bread is better than most breads, but it's not bread. Right? It's not proper bread. It's still got loads of crap in it. Cereals are processed goods. Right? Your oats did not naturally come in a packet with dried fruit and nuts and seeds, or get formed into a lovely little O shape, because we all love Cheerios. And it was not naturally puffed up. Rice is not naturally puffed up into a Rice Krispie. Your cornflake is not naturally flaky. A corn is a corn. It is not flaky at all. A process has to be done to that to make it a flake. And then it has to be roasted, and there's people and processors, and all of these people and processors have to be paid for. Why am I talking about this? Because I know how to survive when you've got nothing, because I have not forgotten my roots whereby I know where things come from and where to get proper food from for cheaper. I have not been brainwashed by society that much that I forget how to make proper beans and tomatoes on toast, right? If you want more out of your money and healthier food, you stop eating processed goods. People who are disabled tend to need more support with their daily living, especially cooking, whereby they need somebody to make it for them, which is why they would pay for takeaways or food delivery or shopping to come to them. Even chopped vegetables and chopped fruit is classed as processed food. There was a process involved. You're paying for somebody to have done that. Okay. That's why disabled people get monetary support to pay for the additional things whereby normal people wouldn't have to, because they can do it themselves. Okay. Bear in mind, I used to be an able-bodied person, and therefore I can distinguish between what an able-bodied person can do versus what a disabled person can do. Okay. So we've distinguished that even chopped frozen vegetables and chopped frozen fruit and chopped fridged fruit and vegetables have processors involved. They are processed food, and you're going to be paying for those extra steps. Okay? That's why food goes up when you buy those food. So what's unprocessed food? Okay, let's think about that. Things that come out of the ground and out of the earth and come straight to my table. Okay, whereby I need to do the processing myself. So beans, so let's stick with baked beans, right? I would go get my own beans. I would get my own tomatoes. I would make my own chopped tomatoes and put them in a pan with the beans, with some salt and a little bit of sugar if I want. And therefore I've got beans and tomatoes, yeah, and my tomato sauce. And then my bread, I would make my own bread, so flour, yeast, water. When was the last time I made bread? I don't eat bread that often. Whatever else you put in bread, because I forget. But yeah, you do it all from scratch, okay? If you are trying to figure out, because obviously we don't have a flour mill where we can go buy flour anymore. We don't have a farmer field where we can just say, can I buy some of your beans, please? You know, they've taken all that away. How do we deal with re-autonomizing ourselves when it comes to taking control of our own money and our own food? Okay. You can buy tins of beans, and it's store brand beans. There's nothing different between them beans and beans with a fancy label. You can buy them in tins. You can buy them dried and soak them in water. Okay, that's cheaper than buying baked beans in a tin, right? Buying tinned tomatoes, chopped tinned tomatoes, is cheaper than baked beans in a tin, right? Because all of these things they're still separate. There's less processes involved. You can have twice as many baked beans in tomato sauce if you bought the beans separately and the tomatoes separately and chucked them in a pan yourself. And there'd be less shit in it. And all you have to do is just open 2 tins and chuck it in. Or soak some beans in water and chuck them in with your tomatoes. Or better yet, get a greenhouse and grow your own tomatoes and beans, because beans are one of the easiest things to grow, I can't tell you. And I love a good bean. I even made a video on that. I love a good bean. I'm a bean fan, right? So the only things really that you need to consider is seasonings and flavourings, because salt and sugar you can't really grow yourself. So you do need to buy those. But again, if you buy in bulk and use it properly, instead of going over the top with either, you're good. You know, you can grow your own herbs on your windowsill, in your garden, anywhere. And that's cheaper than if you bought it from the shop, already dried, or in a pot where they've grown it for you so that you can take it home and keep it on your windowsill for 2 days till it dies. Yeah. Bread. We can't just go to the flour mill anymore and go get some flour and yeast and all these things. Back in the day, we used to be able to go to our local shop. We used to go to Asda and we used to be able to get yeast from in the bakery section. You used to be able to get some yeast from them. It used to be free, then they started charging, and then everything got packeted. It is cheaper to buy flour and yeast separately to make your own bread and make it yourself than it is to buy a loaf of bread. And the bread that you make yourself will have less crap in it, and it will fill you more because it's not full of air holes. It's more stodgy on purpose. Bread used to be stodgy, not cakey, Bread used to be a staple for a reason, because it was stodgy and filling. If you can't do it from scratch yourself like that, you can get bread mixers, and you get all sorts of stuff. You can even get them with cheese and sun-dried tomatoes in it, and seeded, and all these fancy things, right? Cheese and onion and all these things. Those bread mixers are cheaper than a loaf of bread. Take 2 seconds to knock up. Got less crap in it because there's no preservatives, because you'll be eating it straight away. And it's more stodgy. It's more substantial because it's proper bread. Yeah, not this cakey, air-filled, additive-filled crap that we've got in the shop. If you buy fresh fruit and veg and chop them yourself and pickle them, or turn them into chutneys, or store them in jars, or put them in your freezer or your fridge yourself, that's cheaper, and you get more than if you paid for the ready chopped stuff that's already freezed or already in the fridges or already made into pickles and chutneys. If you buy all the base ingredients, that is far cheaper in the long run, and you get more for your money, and it's better for you, and it's more filling. Think about other cuts as well when it comes to meat. So we used to always go to the butchers. I say we, not my family. My family don't eat meat, but history, people would go to the butchers for the meat, and they would buy all sorts of different cuts, not just the chicken breast, not just the thigh, not just the wing, not just some steak, not just some mince. They would buy all sorts of different cuts. Yes, you can get bacon. Bacon's expensive. Get a bacon joint. A bacon joint still has the bone in it, and it's usually around a knuckle, if I remember rightly. The meat is great. I do still eat meat sometimes, despite the fact I've come from a vegetarian family. But barely anything. But yeah, bacon joint. You are definitely going to have more meat and less fat, but there is bone in there. But that bone, you can boil it and make stock and all sorts. You know, there's extra flavour in it. You get flavour from all sorts of stuff. You know, and that's still got nutrition in it. That's not just flavour, that's nutrition. You know, you don't need to just eat certain bits of meat. In fact, those certain bits of meat don't even have that much nutrition in them anyway. Just think about what you're eating, right? If you're going to have baked beans and toast, think about that. Don't just go get it because it's convenient, unless you are disabled and you can't do nothing about it and you have to rely on that. Get the beans in tins on its own. Get the tomatoes on their own. Put the things together yourself. Make more of it for less money, and it's more better for you and healthier for you. And make the bread, even if it's from a bread mix from the shop, it's got less shit in it, and it's going to cost less, and it will fill you more, I can tell you for a fact. So yeah, processed food. Think about it in layman's terms. What's been done to this before I got it? Because I've paid somebody to do those things to it, which is why it's going up more. The only exception to this would be eggs, milk, and cheese, and butter to a degree. So all your dairy stuff is an exception, because whilst things aren't added to them per se, milk still has processors, butter still has processors, cheese still has processors. Yeah, it relies on the animals. You've got to feed the animals, you've got to look after the animals, you've got to They have injections and all sorts to make sure that they've got housing for them, and got to keep them warm, and all the things surrounded by keeping animals. Okay, there's extra processes there. You're looking after extra lives to get something from them. If it was a plant, you just take the whole plant. When it comes to dairy farming, you're not touching. You need that animal alive. You have to look after the animal to get the byproducts. So they again do go up in price. They will. They just will, because the processes involved in looking after those animals go up. And there's nothing you can do about that. There is, unless you get your own chickens, unless you get your own goats and your own cows, and you're willing to put the money in to look after those, which isn't always possible. It's not like I can just get a cow and keep it here. I would. I've always wanted a pig. We've had all sorts growing up, but you know what I'm getting at. Yeah. Just think about what you're eating. Think about the costs. Think about why it's costing more. Think about it in terms of, is this a luxury or a necessity? Tinned baked beans, people think it's a necessity. I need it to live. Yeah, but you don't need that tin of beans in that sauce that's already made. Do you understand what I'm getting at? You don't need that bread there that's already been made for you with all the crap in it, and that's full of sugar and makes you addicted to sugar, which is why you want to keep eating more. You don't actually need to eat that much. I need to say that as well. You don't need to eat half as much as you think you do. You do it out of stress, boredom, and the fact that they've got you addicted to sugar that they've put in everything because they've processed everything. Just put out the processed stuff. Learn what processed food looks like and understand why it costs more, and start doing things yourself. And I'm telling you that as a disabled person. Do it yourself. Find a way to do it yourself. The more complacent and comfortable a human gets, the more domesticated they are, the less chance they have at survival, proper survival. You stop using your brain, you stop using your body. I don't know why I said body like that, brody. You stop being able to look after yourself properly. And that's not good, because we've never been like that. It's only in the past 200 years we've been like that. Yeah, I think I'm done. That's all I've got. The world is annoying me at the moment, and I know people are going to need to rely on basics to survive, but what they consider a basic it's not basic. There's too much processes involved, and that's why it's too expensive. You can get a lot more out of stuff if you just think, and apply yourself and do things yourself and be clever about it and learn and know things. I would like people to survive properly, healthily, more substantially, do better with the money, eat better than what they're potentially going to end up doing, because they don't know any better, and it's not their fault, because society's done that to them, and that's not their fault. They've been brought up in it. Yeah, there you go. There's my little mini whatever the heck that was.